concept called the Literary Cafe because I knew that a lot of African American books buyers don't want to go into bookstores. So you create an environment that they feel comfortable in. We had Let Us See in Philadelphia last night. We had 300 people. And out of the 300 people that attended, over 250 people purchased books. Granted, the price point is $16.95, but if you present them, you got to go and find the book buyers. You cannot sit around and wait for it to happen. And I'm going to ask each one of the panelists, what are some of the tools? Because this is a learning presentation. We want you to walk away with something that you didn't know before you came into this room. So, Marva, what would you, give me 3 things that you think are important to getting people into a bookstore to buy a book.
Well, I think the concept of bookstores are no longer vital. So that's going to be very interesting. I am reimagining and rethinking what that looks like. But getting the consumer to the book, you have to create an experience for that consumer. Much like, as I say to people, Apple doesn't need to have a bookstore, but they do. Not because they're selling you product, but they're selling you an experience. And we've got to move into that space. We also have to recognize that beyond the Americas, there's a huge audience that needs our work. We just recently did an event in Anguilla. In November, I did an event in Jamaica. I'm going to Ghana to do an event. So the geographic boundaries must be removed to reach all of our audiences. Because what seems like saturation here is really just a bit of confusion right now. I think that will level out, but I think going back to the bookstore concept is no longer, people are just too crystal children. They need stimulation. And so what we have to do is create a space, the third space, the fourth space even, where we can create an experience for that, and that's what I am reimagining at the moment. One of my dreams, and one of the things that I'm working very much on, is what I call a page to stage, which is what I call a get on the bus tour. I'm going to talk to Michael right afterwards about that. Where we take our authors to meet the audience, meet them where they are. And so, down south, a lot of people never go here. The big cities are saturated, but we're not having that kind of thing in the south. So why not put 6 of our authors on a bus and take them on tour and create something very special? And this is trademark, it's called Page to Stage, And we have done this. We have done this with Victoria Rowell. We have done this with so many people, and it has been amazing. Because we've brought the literature to life, and we've sold more books than if they've come into a traditional bookstore. So I think a traditional bookstore is no longer necessarily the answer to what we need to do, and until I reimagine what the Anchu bookstore looks like for the future. In Tokyo, by the way, they have a fabulous bookstore that is outperforming every bestseller because they have created that fourth wall for the customer, and it's technologically ready as well as traditionally ready. And so it's the anti-concept that we need to have, and that's what I'm looking to create.
I travel a lot internationally, and this past spring I was in Rome, Paris, and London, and every place I went there was an English language bookstore, and there were quite a few African American authors' books were being sold and selling well. Walter Mosley is international. I've been in Jerusalem and found the Walter Mosley book. So you definitely have to think out of the box. Michael, I say this over and over again, you don't need a Today Show if you got Michael Baisden, because Michael knows how to put a book on a national platform. He reaches readers that in these little small communities that might have a Walmart or a Target, and that's the only way they can find a book. Somehow he gets them out of their comfort zone to purchase books. So how do you decide what book you want to be on your show?
None of this is rocket science. Well, let's talk about how this became successful in the first place. Expos. Expos are one of the biggest ways that African American authors were reaching their audiences. Back then they had expos every week. In the summer, the Black Expo, the Women's Expo, they had the Expo for Expos. It was just, expos were everywhere. And I was setting up at those expos, and I was doing seminars for free. You have to, like you said, you have to go where the people are. You have to go to events. I used to do book signings with the Deltas, still do. The MBAs. You got to find out where the organizations are and go to where the people already are. So all you're asking to do is to plug in. And we're trying to get full price for books at these events. You're looking at the Ultimate Hustler. That hardcover book, when I go to an event, is $10. I don't want you to think about it. I want you to reach in your purse, buy this book, and say, $10, give me 2. And so it's about, and also I want to put together an event where you have music, just like you did with Let Us See. We sold our events at all of our events. We did Baisden Live. So we had artists who would sell books out in the lobby. You have to create those events that people are already accustomed to. Comedy shows, whatever it is that you can attach to it. It's 2 things I learned over the last couple of years. People will come out for their children, and people will come out for social activism, and they'll come out for entertainment. So that's 3 things. If you're not providing one of those 3 things, it's going to be very tough to get an audience. I started out doing my own events, the Love Lust Lives tour, where I would go and rent out the hotel rooms, buy advertising on radio stations, get on the radio show, and get women all upset with me. And then 1,000 or 1,500 of them would show up on Saturday night doing a seminar. That's something that had never been done before. And I would invite many times the bookstore owners from that city in to come in and sell books. So that was always my model from the very beginning. And we got to do that same thing again. If you take an event on the road that's only authors, it's not going to be successful. Because we're not going to come out just for a book signing. When they come out to see me, they're coming out to see the experience. They know Jordan's going to make them laugh. They know I'm going to make them upset talking about relationships. We're going to have fun. We're going to flirt. We're going to have a good time. So just selling a literary event is probably not going to be big for the public. It'll be big for authors to come out and meet authors. But if you want to get people out, create something just like you did with Let Us See, that will allow them to come out to see the artist, and then they get the book experience at the same time. You got to sell them more than one thing. So if I did that bus tour, you better believe Let Us See is going to be on the bus behind me or someone else putting on some entertainment. So we got to find a way to get I'm a thousands guy. I'm not into hundreds of people. I'm trying to find a way to get thousands of people out. And if it's going to be hundreds, it better be 800 or 900. Because in most of our book signings that we announce a day in advance, we can get 200 or 300 people to come out, and 90% of them will buy a book. And let me tell you, selling 200 books, 150 books at an event is a very, very successful event. If you have a good book. If your book is good, that's 150 people. Readers know readers. So that means those readers, those 150 readers have at least 2 or 3 friends that read. You just in essence sold 500 books. Now, one thing that hasn't been said that I'm going to say, and it may sting, we're not writing enough good books. You know, I was reading Robert McKee's book, Story, which changed the way I wrote, actually. Robert McKee, if you all don't know who that is, speaks a lot about writing. And I think that many times we're writing for ourselves. And when you're a really good writer, you write for your audience. And I think that we've gotten so caught up in black writing for a black audience. I've never been interested in writing for a black audience. I wrote from an experience of wherever I was from and hoping that everybody of every race who had the same experience can relate to it. That even if your characters are black, which we don't need to go all out of my way to remind a reader every 5 minutes that they're reading a black character, and use slang to remind them that they're dealing with a black character. It makes no sense. It's counterproductive. Or to put black images on our covers to sell them. That's not necessarily the right thing to do. Now, nobody is going to tell you this, but I am. If your story is good enough for a book, it's good enough for a movie. If your story is good enough for a book, it's good enough for a movie. The only reason I got into this business was to make movies. I've had 2 stage plays, and only Tyler Perry's stage plays are more successful than me and Crying in the Dark and Maintenance Man on the road. You've got to think beyond your books. I wanted to do radio. I wanted to do TV. I use this as a platform. Don't just see writing as an opportunity to write books. Writing books gives you an audience to speak in front of people. Give you a chance to sell yourself. And the more successful you are, the more successful she's going to be. Because now they're not just coming to see an author, they're coming to see a personality. It's going to make her job easier, his job easier, because they're not just selling a book, they're selling the personality. And we got to understand there's an entertainment aspect to this business. You all are getting stuck in this literary, sophisticated, intellectual thing, and not understanding it's also a personality, and it's the entertainment business. People read for entertainment, to be taken away, not for your blackness and your soul and your issues. You want to sell that? Just go speak at colleges and say power to the people. When you're writing novels, you're telling a story, and I hope that your stories are not just for black people. Hip-hop artists make a ton of money, not only because they're talking from the streets, but they're also talking about things that are universal. So you all got to tap into that and get off this black trip and get on the writing trip and understand that literature can be a very powerful tool to reach people and change minds, not just black people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alexander is someone I had on the show.
Yes.
And I promote her big time. And I have Jawaza Kanjufu on the show on a regular basis. What I'm saying is that we want to drive a large number of our listeners into the interest of books. Because what got a lot of people interested in books was Terry.
Yeah.
Terry started, whether or not you all want to give her credit, I was already reading Miseducation of Negro, Destruction of Black Civilizations, Black Man, Obsolete Single and Dangerous Man. That's what started me to be the man I am now, is reading all of those kinds of books. So those books are important, right? But in terms of getting the kind of market that we want to get people interested in reading, there's got to be an entertainment aspect of it. I know how we think. That's my job every day, is to make sure that people are, look, I can organize a Gina 6 March, I can organize Trayvon, I can get the president elected, but I can't stay on the radio unless I'm entertaining you and playing music.
But that's a different medium.
It's a different medium, but I'm talking about, this is going to help everybody.
Yeah.
Promoting Michelle Alexander is not going to sell Zayn, but promoting Zayn can sell Michelle Alexander. And I'm not saying that literature is not important. It is more important, actually, to our well-being. But you got to get us to read. We're not reading. Our literacy rate is down, and I'm going to tell you why black men don't read is the same reason I wasn't reading. Nobody's writing anything I want to read. So we can debate over the substance of writing, whether or not we're getting a quality writing, but if people are not reading, it doesn't matter.